Hello everybody, happy Tuesday. We are going live tonight with Rikki. We're just gonna wait for some of you to join and for Rikki to join. I was waiting for Rikki to reconfirm on our WhatsApp, and then I was like, it's for sure her type to just be on here waiting for me to start, so I'm just gonna be here. Hi Rena, thanks for joining. How's everybody's Tuesday going? Usually don't do a live this late, but for Rikki's schedule we make exceptions. Hello, Klein Publishing. Thank you for joining. Rikki, hi. Let me invite you. Hi, I'm a fighter. Hi, Rikki. I was just saying, I was waiting for you to reconfirm on the WhatsApp, and then I was like, you're so chill that you're for sure on Instagram for the past 10 minutes waiting for me to just show up, and you're not going to see my WhatsApp, so I'm just gonna...
No, it would come up as a notification anyway, but I was just I just wasn't sure, so I was like, you know what, because I don't really follow anyone from this account because it's not for following, so I was like, you know, I'm gonna sit on her page and wait to see when she goes live.
Totally. So thank you for being so chilled about this. You're really a joy to converse with, and let's get right to it because we want to keep it short and sweet. So okay. I feel like people were very excited. I got some feedback. They're like, oh my god, you're doing this with Rikki. We're very excited.
Really?
So yes
so funny.
I feel like you have a reach that you don't know about. I follow you. I watch your stories, and I don't watch many people's stories. I just find you fun to watch.
Thank you. I really I've been quiet on my account because I forget that I have it. So unless let's say especially it's the winter, I feel I have a wedding coming up and stuff. For the most part, it's pretty quiet. So unless I'm getting dressed, I literally put on makeup and a wig for this live. You know, for the most part, I'm either in a cap or a snoot the whole day. So I literally have just not had anything going on. So I was actually very excited to come on here because I was okay, amazing. I have something to do.
Amazing. We can definitely do this more often when you're bored, for sure. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so let's get right to it. So I feel I want to talk about your hand story and start from being a child with this situation. And I don't that's how I'm going to refer to it. And you feel free to tweet that and go with it, because I feel it's something so unique and you own it so beautifully. And I feel every single person can learn from it. So I wanted to delve into it a bit, even though it's not the only thing that this live is about.
Yeah. I'm just going to call my hand because honestly, I feel calling it anything else is the situation. It makes
exactly.
I mean, actually, it will come up after, but someone has once refer a few people, not a few people, it has come up once or twice in my life that a shot kind of has referred to it as a situation or something in a really obnoxious way.
Oh
so
my god! I feel that was me. Now I'm obnoxious and a shot.
No, totally not. It's literally no. It's trust me, a hand. It is what it is. It's just it's a hand. It's the same way. Some people have pimples, some people have blonde hair, some people have blue eyes. You know, it's just.
Yeah, you're choppy a little bit. You're a bit choppy.
Let me try to fix my Wi-Fi.
Sure.
Are we better now?
I'm gonna wait a minute for it to it's turning. Let's try that. You want to talk?
What about now?
You're a bit choppy.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, but it's worse than before. It's more the visual is more choppy. You want to go back to the other?
Because the service in Muncie isn't the best, and then our Wi-Fi is either.
Okay, so, now it's good. Now keep it. Let's just keep it. Let's go for it. Okay. Yeah, if we chop it, I'll tell you. I'll put up the finger and I'll be stop.
Okay. Okay, sure. So basically, I was born with one hand having fingers and one hand, don't mind my bit in cuticles, that's an anxiety thing just in general, separate story, but one hand missing fingers. And honestly, I think my whole life, my family has just been the kind that's just you know, you're not different, you do everything the same. You know, I took piano lessons, I was able to just do everything. Any sort of extracurricular activity I did. Wow. So it never really of course there were people that stared at me and there were people that said rude comments and stuff, but I don't think I was actually, I think I more internalized it subconsciously, and that's what brought about a lot of my anxiety and different issues later. But for when I was younger, I mostly remember more just being a manipulative child. I knew that if someone made fun of my hand or looked at my hand, I could tell them and they would get in trouble. You know, so I never,
love that. I love that you own that.
because I never looked at it as like, oh, this is like, I mean, like I knew I was different, obviously, and like whatever, I knew that like I was, you know, people looked at me differently, but like at the same time, like I was just like, whatever, okay. But it was only like once I got to shidduchim, I think that's kind of where like shidduchim and after was kind of where like I was made more aware of everything. Like it made me realize that like I was putting up a wall, you know, because I was just so like pretending to be tough, you know, because I'm just like, yeah, I'm so tough and nothing bothers me. I don't care about anything. But like really, like I'm a very emotional person, you know, like really I internalized everything and like everything was really hurting me more than I let on. But instead of like showing the hurt or like the shame or whatever I felt, I was just like, yeah, whatever, okay, it's fine. Like I'm so fun. This, whatever. Like just yeah. So once it came to Shidduchim, then I was kind of like, it didn't happen like as obviously in the beginning, but like slowly, like I would go to Shadchanim and like, you know, I went to a million Shadchanim as one does. And like, it wasn't as obvious. I mean, like, listen, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that's 100% the reason that guys said no to me, but like, it became a little bit obvious. Like, let's say if a guy, I mean, and again, I have brothers, so like, I know like when they were in Shidduchim, like when a mother sees like two resumes and they look the exact same, you know, it's easy for them to say like, oh, this one has something, this one doesn't. Like, oh, this one has a hand. Like, just go to like the, they'll pick the girl that doesn't have a funny hand, you know, like or something like that. And again, I have no idea if that's actually what went on in people's minds, but like, but yeah, like that's just. And then I actually went to a shadchan. Well, started first. I went to one shadchan. And I was with my mother, and he said, he looks at me and he's like, oh, besides for your obvious problem, like, do you have any other problems? So I just like, I was 20 years old. like, yeah.
You need to go to these people with like a BB gun or something. You know?
No, I was just like, I was like, well, like I didn't even like know how to process it because like, how do you process when someone like, and also I'm a really not confrontational person. So, like, I just, like, didn't know what to say. So I was just like, and, like, I left the room. He's like, okay. Like, he told me to, like, leave the room so he could talk to my mother. And then I came back, and I was like, I was stewing. Like, I was so angry just because, like, I've never, like, maybe people have, like, thought about it or stared at me or, like, looked at me funny or, like, whispered or whatever. But, like, no one had been brazen enough ever to say it to my face besides for, like, a kid. And, like, I don't count the kid as saying something.
Right.
So I walked back into the room and I was like, it's not me that has a problem. It's the people that have the problem that are the problem. And he was like, of course, whatever. No, I think that was like the first time that like I stood up for myself. But I've had I've had like other times where I had, I got a fake hand because when I came back from seminary and I went to like a friend's wedding and I came back and saw like a cousin from like out of town was in town. So I was downstairs talking to them and like my mother was there and like, I guess I didn't realize that subconsciously I was hiding my hand because again, subconsciously I didn't realize that that's what I do. I tend to hide my hand or at least I used to much more hide my hand like in public settings or any single time. Like it was kind of like my shield of like, I didn't like want, I didn't want anyone to stare or I didn't want the looks or I didn't want the thoughts that I thought were going to happen. So I was like, you know, it's easier for me to like hide it and pretend it's not there and then like see what happens. So my mother said to me, like, she's like, are you ashamed of your hand? I think, which was like so funny because looking back, like, it's like, it's the same way like someone else has something they're ashamed of that's like physical and you're just like, you notice that? You know? Yeah, I do. Yeah. So I was just kind of like, I don't know, like, I guess, like, I didn't even really notice that I was hiding it.
Wow. And you're what age at this point? You're like 20?
I was like 19. Like, I was just back from seminary, and so my mother's like, you know what? Like, let's go, like, get you, like, a fake hand. Like, so we did some research into it. We looked into 2 places, and we ended up going to California to get a fake hand, which, like, basically, it's a prosthetic hand. It has no like no functionality whatsoever except for it just looks exactly like a hand.
Yeah.
Like just to make me like feel normal, you know, because when someone sees something different, that's when they stare. But if like they're not looking for something different, they're just not notice it.
Exactly. But it's so cool. I just want to stop for a second that your mom, you were so well adjusted that she didn't even realize that you were insecure about it. Like I feel like that, and I know that you're saying that part of that was like a front, which was unhealthy, but part of it was healthy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like that's like so much strength that your mom, who's like lives with you and like it sounds like you have a great relationship with,
Yeah.
was like only realized that at each, you know, at that age, and because you were so like it didn't really interfere, and like you were, and or you did such a good job like dealing with whatever interference it had, and I think that's like pretty cool.
Thank you. You know, it happens that actually came out in therapy later on, where it was just like the whole the whole paradox of that it's like so amazing that I was so well adjusted and like I so kind of like ignored my hand, but then like the con of that is like I ignored my hand, you know, like I
Right.
just pushed away everything and pretended it didn't
Exactly.
exist.
It's like a double-edged sword. It's
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
so true. Yeah, there's like no right answer, but it
Yeah.
shows tremendous strength to be able to be so well adjusted. At the same time, it's like that fine line. You want to be well adjusted, but you also want to be like acknowledging the feelings. But like, who knows how to do that as a 12-year-old? Nobody.
Right.
So like,
Yeah. Honestly, like it's just there's no right answer to this. Like I always like I even like my therapist once said, like, you know, what do you think about all this? And I was like, there's no right answer. Like no parent, like when they have a child that comes out that's like maybe not exactly how they pictured, you know, like physically, whatever it is, like no one gets choices in this world. So like my parents' choice was kind of like, okay, like we deal with this. We treat her like her normal. She's normal because she is. And my parents went to like a lot of doctors when I was a baby to see like if there's anything I can do or like or if they can do for me or whatever. And like one doctor finally pulled my mother aside and he said, your daughter has a physical handicap. He said, your daughter has a social handicap. He said, she will grow up having a harder time socially a little bit. He said, she is not physically handicapped. She will be able to do everything. Like, you need to calm down, stop, like, looking for answers. And I think, like, that's when my parents were like, okay. And, like, then they chose to raise me the way they did. So, like, I credit them.
I love that. That's a good doctor. Like, that's such a brilliant reframe, you know? And, like, socially, I think you made up for it, like, many times over. I feel like you have, like, so much pain and, like, you have friends beyond, like, whatever. But, like, that's a very cool way, because I think so many people have, like, physical, you know, handicaps, but they're really not physical handicaps. They're really social handicaps, and it's a matter of perspective on some level, right?
Yeah, no,
that's totally where the choice comes in.
Yeah, so like just kind of like really, so of course, like I said, I had my stumbling blocks with people, but it was really Duchim that was kind of like the hardest, and because of that, like I already had like my own like sort of shell to begin with. That was a lot like, you know, I was sarcastic, I was a little tougher, whatever, but I think like slowly with time in Shidduchim, like it just like I never like dated anyone seriously really on like except for like toward the end, but otherwise like I just didn't have any interest or like I don't know, like I think again like looking back now I probably just I never wanted to get to that stage of having to talk about my hand. And like don't get me wrong, it's not like there were like, you know, it's not like I could have married anyone and like it's because of my hand that held me back. Like it's trust me, I dated plenty of not normal guys. Some normal, you know, some were totally normal and some were very much not. You know,
you don't have to convince me, Rikki. Okay.
Yeah. I'm saying it's not like I have regrets, but like, oh, you know, because of my hand, I would have given someone.
For sure.
I definitely like. I mean, I gave more people chances toward the end of like my single life, just because I was just like, I'm getting older. Like, you know, maybe who knows where it could come from, whatever. Right. But like, I was like, I didn't want to get past like a certain date. Like a lot of times, like I would like always cut it off at like 2 dates because I was like, no, can't go further. I don't want him to ask me for my number. I don't want to get close to him, whatever. And like only like as time went on, and again with therapy and like with like more emotional maturity, like, and that came much later in life. That did not come like in the beginning of my dating, but like only then was I able to say like, okay, like maybe I do have a problem being vulnerable. Like maybe like I have no idea how to be in a relationship or how to like be a normal, emotionally healthy person because I never acknowledge my feelings, you know, and I went to a therapist and we discussed that. And it's something that I still struggle with till today. Like I still have a hard time expressing my emotions the right way because like I am so used to like putting my feelings aside and not feeling them and just like being in denial of them and like everything's okay, everything's good. And again, like it's that double-edged sword where it's like amazing because I'm positive and like everything is always great and like good. But then it's like when I'm like feeling bad or sad, I'm like I don't get to like fully like sit in that emotion. So I have to like, and thankfully Yosef is like really, really emotionally healthy and like really like emotionally expressive. And like, you know, he'll stop me sometimes to be like, okay, you know, like, how do you feel right now? Like, think about it. Like, he's like, slow down. Pause. Yeah, like slow down, take a pause. Like, how are you? Like, tell me what you're feeling. And like for a second, I'm like, I don't know. And like, you know, like I'm like going in circles.
Yeah.
Like
you just want to like push it aside again, you know? Like let's just go out to dinner, you know?
Yeah, but I think a big part of that is attributed to my hand. Like I think most of it, honestly. Like I have also like I have like control issues, not with anyone else. Like I don't feel the need to control anyone else, but like I need to like control everything around me. Or like I have a severe phobia of vomiting.
Mm-hmm.
And like, so I've learned like over time, like with being sick, whatever, that like I know how to control, like I know like what pills to take, how to sit, you know, what to drink, what to eat, what to do this, what to do that.
Yeah.
And like, but that's crazy. Like I don't even like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's a crazy, I should not even like, I'm so convinced that like I
You need to vomit. We need
everything.
to make you vomit.
I trust me, like yeah, I've been like I've been to therapy for that too, and they're like exposure, and I'm like, okay, but like phobia, like it's a phobia. I don't want to be exposed to it.
And also, like, it's really hard to do that exposure because like you can't like make yourself vomit. Like it has to be at the, and then once it's like it kind of like comes up on you, and it's like you can't even break it up into like a higher. Like it's hard to like break it down. Like look at someone else vomit, like watch someone else vomiting. Like it doesn't break down nicely.
Yeah, but basically, so that's like a very.
So you feel like you kind of like, it sounds like some of your unhealthy coping skills were like avoiding the feelings and also like needing to control, and like hiding your hand was like a way of controlling. Avoiding your feelings is a way of controlling your environment, like your internal environment, how you're gonna feel. I'm curious, like where else did control come up? Like did you find it like in dating? Did you find it in like?
Well, I found it in dating because I was able to like, let's say no to a guy, even though like again like, you know, and if the guy said no to me, I wasn't like upset at all. Like that wasn't part of it, but I think it was. I think I wrote this down once because I sometimes like when I have thoughts, I'll like write them in my notes. Yeah. And I think that one thing was that like I like to control, like because I anticipate, like I'm a really, really observant person, like things that most people won't notice because like my whole life I lived with my hand, and like I've noticed like those glances that people think that I don't notice, and it's like I notice. Like anytime like you're looking at my hand and you sneak a glance, like I know. Like I've dealt with this my whole life, you know, like you're not like you're not catching one on me.
You're hyper vigilant in this way.
Like so like I'll notice it, and because like I notice it, like I try to anticipate like how someone will react, and that's how I act. I'll like stand a certain way or move my hand a certain way or like say certain things or whatever. Like I try to control my environment to control people's reactions, because I've had times where like I remember there was one time a family friend, like I thought like we had like they were like a good family friend, right? So I thought they knew about my hand because usually like your family friend, you know about my hand, whatever. Yeah. And like they weren't family friend for so long. More like our parents were friends, and like they only hung out with like my family a little bit. And like one time I was like holding my phone, and like I was like either taking a selfie, I was doing something with my phone, like I was showing my hand, because when I'm comfortable with someone, I show my hand, and like I feel less ashamed. So I remember I was like doing something with my phone or whatever, and the person was like, "What happened to your hand?" I'm like, even still, like I still get triggered sometimes when someone will be like, "What's like the first like what like when someone's asking like what is something or whatever," like
you like associate it with that question.
Yeah, it's a trigger for me because I'm like, what? Like I get like automatically like it's like a knee-jerk reaction, like what like what do you want? Like because I'm so used to that like discomfort of like it's like here we go again. Like I know like even now again like especially talking about my hand like on my page and stuff like that, and like the fact that I show it more and more people are aware of it, it definitely has made me more comfortable, because I'm like, okay, like people know, you know, it's not like so far into them or whatever, but like still like I'll still like recognize, well not anymore again because like I also don't leave my house, but like when like either like when I was single or like earlier on whatever, like I just like I'm like here we go again. Like even we were last year Sukkot time, we were by Yosef's mother in Toronto, and like for Sukkot, and his nephew was there, and his nephew like is like this cute little 3-year-old, and he's like, "What happened to your hand?" And like he's a 3-year-old, you know, like it's not like I wasn't insulted or anything, but it's still like something so triggering that like it reminds me like, ugh, like okay, I'm gonna have to like I still have to deal with this my whole life. Like that's just when I have kids, like they're gonna ask me, and their friends are gonna ask, you know, like I never I like think of like a million scenarios and like outward like tons of different scenarios, because I know like different things are gonna happen, and like I'm always gonna have to answer to it. So it's like even though it's something I'm much more comfortable with, it's still something that I deal with and like will deal with. So it's like it's definitely more comfortable because like I spoke about it, and more people are aware of it, and like you know, and like
it sounds like with time it gets easier for you, and like I feel like even though you're like thinking now like, oh my god, how will I get through all those like milestones, like deep down you know that you can of course get through them. But also I think that more recently, maybe like from your engagement to Yosef, and like since you've been more open about it, it's gotten so much easier for you. And I think if you keep this up, like even for selfish reasons, like it will become so like not a big deal for you, almost like to that level. And I think that's like the same way it was like initially when you were confronted about it, it might have like stung, and now it's like, yeah, it's just like part of, it's like a nuisance type of thing. And then it might become like, oh, this is fun. Like I have a conversation starter for every single person I meet. Like kind of like I never have to be like in an awkward, like, what do we say? What do we talk about? You know?
Yeah. No, it's just like, I remember like when I was like in Shidduchim or dating, whatever, like some Shidduchim would be like, oh, I have to tell the guy before. And I'm like, okay, please tell him before, because like I'd rather him know, like, you know, before he goes out with me. And I've had it sometimes where like I'll say the boy doesn't know before, then the Shidduchim will like tell them in the middle, and all of a sudden they're like, they want to talk about it. And I'm like, what is there to talk about? You're not my therapist. Like, what do you want to know? Like, it's not a whole life story. Like in therapy, it's a life story because that like made me who I am. But like in dating, like it's not gonna like reveal any, you know what I'm saying? It's not like it's not something I have to expose and I have to say,
talk about. Like, I guess it does depend like a what number date. Like if you're dating a third, fourth time, like it's not necessarily like set therapy session time. Yeah,
it's also like it's a hint. Like if it comes up, it comes up. Like even it came up once before. It didn't even come up. I discussed it with two guys. One was Yosef, and it also like, and that kind of like I
want to talk about that. Even though I didn't write that down on our list, I feel like that's so important because I get questioned so many times about people that have different vulnerabilities, and they're like, at what point do I bring that up? Maybe I shouldn't be dating because I have this vulnerability and I can't bring it up. And then like if I do bring it up, how do I bring it up? At what point? So I'd love, clearly it worked out with Yosef, so like I feel like if we focus on that for a few minutes, that would be amazing.
Yeah, but just before Yosef, the guy I dated right before Yosef, he like, whatever, he was a piece of work, but he because of like the same way, like it's so funny. So I, like I said, I had my toughness, I had like my walls that I put up, and like they normally didn't really come out in dating, except for the fact like I'm a big mirror person. Like if someone's acting a certain way or someone's being a certain way, a lot of times I'll mirror them or I'll like contrast them in some way. So this guy was kind of like a weak personality. Like you could just tell like he was the kind of person who's like, he just was weak. He wasn't mentally strong. And like I didn't realize it at the time. So like because of that, I think I was being a little bit more harsh and a little bit more tough because like I had to like balance that out. I was acting tougher than I normally would because like I was just like, this guy is so weak. Like he needs someone to take care of him. And but then like he was telling the dating coach, because he actually like we had a dating coach first, the same dating coach I used with Yosef, I used with this guy, and she's like, you have to show him that you're sensitive. Like he doesn't think you're sensitive. So like I brought up my hand as like proof that I'm sensitive and I can be kind, which is like ridiculous. Like my hand is not like a weapon. I don't know, whatever. It was just ridiculous.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like you have to like be vulnerable. So you're like, okay, let me use like my vulnerable resource. Yeah. Like prove that I have like a soft side to me.
I know. And it was so ridiculous because like at the end of the day, you can't make a weak person strong. Like it doesn't like, and you can't prove to a weak person that like, you know, I don't have to make myself weak just because someone else is weak, which is whatever. That was like an entirely different thing. But with Yosef, I was like so traumatized because I dated this boy right before Yosef. So I was so like, did not want to like, I was just like, I'm not talking about my hand. Like, I'm not doing this, whatever. I don't even remember what date it came up. Like, it didn't really come up. It was like later on. And I was just like, whatever. Like, I even told Yosef, I was just like, whatever. It's not like a conversation. It's just my hand. Like, and he was like, okay. Like, he just like let it go. He was like, tell me what you're comfortable with. We don't have to talk about it. Like, sure, no problem.
Wow.
And like only once we were like really married, like did like, again, like marriage brings out amazing things, but it can also bring out your insecurities, you know, like things you never even like realized about yourself.
Yeah.
And like only once we were married, then I started like realizing more like how much it affected me, because again, like when you're single, like you're dating, you're doing your own thing, you don't have like time or like interest or patience to think about yourself. You're not like, okay, like you're not being really introspective. Like you can be growing in some sense, but you don't have like a person
that's holding up like that's for you.
Yeah, exactly. So like only like once I got married, like I was like, okay, like, you know, this is something that has like strongly affected me. Before that I was like, yeah, like it's affected me, but like whatever, cruising through life, you know.
And with Yosef though, like it sounds like you didn't even bring it up during the date. Like he totally let you have that like cover kind of thing, and like, he didn't care. He was like, she needs this defense, I'm giving it to her, I just want to marry this girl, we'll figure it out after.
Yeah, honestly, Yosef is like I said, like a really emotionally healthy, and he's really perceptive.
Yeah.
So like also we texted before we dated. So like my anxiety kind of like my anxiety shields went up the second we started dating, but when we were texting I was like super open, super friendly, super cute, you know, so
Mhm.
like he was able to see that side of me. So even like throughout our dating, when he saw my defenses go up, he's like, no, like I know this is a defense, like I know that she's really just anxious, like I could tell, like I saw her,
Mhm.
I saw when we were texting, like she's not this crazy anxious person that she's acting like right now
Yeah.
while we're dating.
Wow.
Yeah,
I love
so
that. So it's so
yeah,
cool
I'm
though that
very
he's like,
thankful.
yeah, and like, typically like if there's like a more like an emotionally sensitive guy, I would imagine that they would like kind of like impose that on the other person. Like,
Yeah.
I'm so open emotionally, you should open up, like, and like pressure the other person, like impose
Yeah.
that. It sounds like, but like true emotional health is like being able to like see the other person for who they are. Like they don't
Yeah.
have to be on your level of emotional vulnerability, and like they can still have awesome qualities and other strengths, and maybe that's not their number one strength, and like
Yeah.
you can appreciate it in yourself without imposing it on the other person. And I think that's like a real
Yeah.
green flag that people, I know, I don't think that we ever even verbalize that like on OK Clarity even, and like even for myself, like, and I feel like Yosef portrays that with you. Like
Yeah.
he can be super strong emotionally, but that was like what the way he was able to like get it, have an amazing relationship with you versus like
Yeah.
imposing that on you.
Yeah. Actually, I remember on the third date, he like was talking about something, like his own thing. And I remember like after the date, like I spoke to our dating coach and I was like, he like he told me way too much. Like, I hope he doesn't think that I'm gonna be like, being that vulnerable so early on. Like it's a third date. Like he could relax. And like the dating coach is like, no, like he just is like that. He's just like a very emotionally healthy, open person that is like
Yeah,
okay,
be
talking about
vulnerable.
himself without expecting you to talk back. Like,
I
you're
love that.
fine.
That is
Yeah.
like such a green flag for all the ladies in the back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably. Exactly.
And all the guys in the back, like I feel like it
Yeah.
can totally be vice versa. Like if there's a girl that's more emotionally, open or whatever, that doesn't mean the guy has to be on that page.
Yeah.
And obviously you have to be okay with that. And
Yeah.
there's a beauty to that, to being okay with that, and being able to like mold each other in a way.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, amazing. I know that we're like running almost out of time, and we must catch other things because this is so amazing. We can still
Sure.
definitely do like a part two. I
Yeah,
want to get
totally.
to therapy and coaching. So have you been in therapy before dating, like before dating Yusuf? Because I feel like you spoke about it more openly
Yeah.
about, yeah. So you have, like, you've been there.
So, yeah, basically, when I was younger, my parents sent me to therapy a lot because of my hand. But I think that, like, therapy is not really, like, it's not really beneficial until you're, like, aware of your feelings or you're aware that you need help. Because, like, when I was a kid, like, I went to therapy, but, like, I didn't know what was going on. Like, I didn't really, like, again, like, my hand was just my hand. I didn't feel, like, ashamed of it, or at least I wasn't, like, aware of the fact that I
You weren't
felt
in touch with
ashamed.
it, yeah.
Yeah, so I was just like, whatever. Like, I went to therapy and I colored, or whatever it was. I spoke
Yeah.
about myself, but I never really like whatever. It was nothing. And then in the first time I really like went to a therapist after that was in 20, I think it was 2018. I like I was like, you know what? Like I don't know how to be vulnerable in dating. Like I need to figure this out. Like I need to figure out what's going on. So I went to a therapist a few times and like we kind of got down to it that it was my hand, whatever. And then like she started just like talking about my hand the whole time. And I was like, this isn't like, no, no, thank you. Like, I don't
Mhm.
need to like sit and like, go round and round in circles about my hand. Like, this is not what I'm here for. So I
Yeah.
kind of like terminated our sessions. And then I was like, okay, like I know it's my hand. Like, let's like, I, read a few Brene Brown books and I was like, like I'm good. Like we're good. Vulnerability, great,
Yeah.
wonderful,
Yeah.
denial. And then when I was dating Yosef, well, first when I was dating the guy before Yosef, he had told the shots on this boy that I'm not sensitive enough, I'm not kind enough. So my aunt's best friend, who's like my aunt's best childhood friend, who my mother knows, is like, she's a dating coach. Like, why don't you talk to her? Like, you don't know what you're doing. Like, figure this out. And I ended up talking to her, and like, she was amazing. Obviously, this guy was not for me in any way. So, but when I started dating Yosef, um, she speaks to both parties, so which is like amazing because
Mm-hmm.
like it's so important to keep that like flow of conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So we just spoke to her, like, and she was just so helpful to both of us. Like, she was like our line of communication before we even like knew what was going on. Like, let's say like if we had like a bad date or something, she would like talk to Yosef and be like, "How do you think this date went?" Like, then like she would say to Yosef like, "Oh, like she didn't think the date went well. Like, why do you think that?" Or like, could you do this better? Like, let's say like our worst date was like the fifth date where like it was like COVID-ish time. So like restaurants, everything was closed at like 10, and like Yosef would pick me up from work like at 7 o'clock, basically every date. And I was always starving, obviously, because like when am I eating? And then, but
I
like,
was always starving, period. Like everybody
yeah,
should know that. Like every single time, go out to eat. Like
always.
this is a
Like,
public service announcement.
seriously, like we literally, like Yosef always laughs now. He's like, we went to every restaurant because we dated for like 4 months, and like we only went out
That's
to
the
eat.
way it should be. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Dating is not cheap, and it was never intended to be. Period.
exactly.
End of story. If you meet the girls to chip in, ask. Okay, I'm sure they'll be okay.
Exactly.
Like if it's
But
that dire.
yeah, exactly. But like, so on this fifth date, he took me to like a game place. So we like at the time, like we just got into the car and we started driving, and I had no idea where we were going. And again, I'm not like confrontational. So should I have said like, where are we going? Yes. But like, should he have also said like, we are going here? Yes. So yeah, we ended up at this game place.
Yeah.
And I was just like angry because I was starving, and I just also like hate games, like Uncommons, like whatever. Like some girls are into that. Like I was never into that. Like
we're so similar. I disdain games. Like, do not take me there. That and escape room. Like you take me there.
Escape room, by the way, like is one of the worst dates ever. Highly vote against escape room. But like I also, again, I consider myself like a relatively like smart person. Escape the room, like I'm not good at it. Like I can't figure out what's for me. It's just
okay. No wonder we connect with you. No wonder we are so similar. Like it's a control thing, by the way. I feel like you're trapped enough. You don't need to be doing board games, and you don't need to be in an escape room. Like it's enough that you're like confined to this one person for the next 4 hours that you have to have a conversation with and like be kind of like relational. Yeah.
No, it's terrible. So basically he took me to the game place, and I was like just in a bad mood the whole time, and like he took me for food after, but I was just in a bad mood, and it was like a bad day because I was just hangry.
You were hangry,
I was just hangry. And I really like came home from the date, and I was like, I'm saying no, that's it. And like I spoke with the dating coach, and she's like, listen, she's like, you can say no, like that's up to you. She said, but if a small part of you thinks you may have just been hungry, you have to go out again. So I was like, of course, like the second someone puts doubt in your head, I'm like, maybe I was just hungry. I don't know, whatever. So I was like, I was like all stubborn. I was like, fine, like I'll give it one more date and I'll see what happens and like whatever.
Yeah.
And then like the next date ended up being good. So like we
just you went to eat first. Yeah. Of course, you went to eat first.
Yeah, but she told Yosef, she said, Yosef, next time tell her where she's going. And she told me, she's like, Rikki, you have to like ask him where you're going. She's like, you both have to learn how to communicate. And so like she helped us like kind of like keep that line of communication, and she really helped. And like trust me, I was like super anxious the whole time. Like my brain was getting in my own way. So like when we started dating, like it was after I think we started like we were like dating really seriously at this point. I think we were like talking about engagement, but I still like couldn't like process it, and I really was just like super anxious about it. I couldn't like I was just like I think I like him, I'm comfortable with him, I feel safe, but like I don't know, like am I making the right decision, what am I doing? I was like so anxious about it. And I was like, you know what, I just need to like I need to go to a therapist and like figure out what's going on. I was like, because I have this guy here who is amazing, and he's everything I'm looking for and more. And like I need to figure out what's wrong with me. Like I need to like understand why I'm not just like welcoming this in. So I went to a therapist.
A new therapist, so not just for everyone.
A new therapist, yeah.
Not so the one that you didn't vibe with. That was like everything's about your hand, which I like totally love that you like terminated that, because like life is deeper than just like a hand, you know? Like
So I went to this therapist who he specializes in like older singles who, like basically who have like somewhat commitment issues. So I only like spoke to him like 4 times, I think, or 5 times. Like he's very like he like gets the job done. He's not like the kind of therapist that like he's not meant to like be used for years. Like he's trying to like, you know, with
short-term solution focused.
Yeah. So I spoke to him, and he was just like, you have transitional anxieties, like you have a fear of change. Your brain is not allowing you to like fully like take Yosef in because like you're so scared, like what if this, what if that. He's like, so he told me like the smartest thing ever, which like I try to remember like when I'm feeling anxious, and he says like take all your bad what ifs and turn them into good what ifs. Like instead of saying like what if like this happens or what if this happens, think like what if this is the best decision I ever made? What if this is the best thing that ever happened to me? What if I'm the happiest I'm going? Like what if I'm going to be the happiest I'm ever going to be in my entire life? He's like, and once you take that, he said like your brain is like putting like making you not like him because your brain is screaming like protect. Like I'm scared. Like you don't want your life. And the truth is like I don't think enough people talk about that. Like being like when you like I got married at 28 and a half, like older single, you know? But like I was so used to like being on my own, and I was okay with it. Like especially I'm a creature of habit. Like I become so accustomed to like living at home, going to work, coming home, watching Netflix. I was just in routine and I was okay with it.
Yeah.
And like all of a sudden, like someone comes into my life, even if it's like an amazing change and like a welcome change, and this is what everyone like hopes for, you know, like,
Yeah.
like I was 28 and a half, dating for 10 years. Like I was like, okay, like I'm so excited this is happening. And still my brain was like, wait, danger, danger. No. Oh my gosh. Like your life is going to change. Like you're going to have a different routine. And like, I'm married for like almost a year and a half now at this point. Like, you know, I'm in a different routine than I am. And trust me, I'm still in routine at the same time, because even though your life can change, you adopt a different routine, and then you have kids and you have a different routine. Like
Exactly.
your body and your brain and your life just adjusts to the new
We're
routine.
so adaptable, but like
Yeah.
our view of ourselves is not so adaptable. And
Exactly.
I'm very similar to you. Like I also love
Yeah.
routine. Like like if you think too much about it, it's like you know, you can't like wrap your head around it. But like if you think back in your life, you probably can think of like, oh, I had this job, then I transitioned to this job, and then I had that routine and that routine. Like we're always adapting. It's just like this is obviously a bigger transition. I love that. I love that reframe of like what if, like to the negative, and like what if to the positive. I think that's amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
Yosef always says, he's like, you're just too hard on yourself. And I was like, first I'm like, no, I'm not hard on myself, whatever. And like the truth is, like, I think in general, we, especially like, I don't know, I feel like definitely me, at least, like I'm for sure hard on myself. I'm always like, you know, but like I'm not accepting of my own, like, I almost don't accept my own flaws in a way. Like I'm aware of them, but I don't like feel them, so I don't accept them. So like I'm just like, no, like I can't do this. I can't do this. You know, like I'm not gonna be able to do this. What if I can't? What if I can't? What if I can't? And the truth is, like, you know, my whole life I can, like, and I prove myself that I can. So like I'm like, I like scare myself for the future, even though like, you know, life has proven otherwise. So it's like it's so strange even now. Like even now I'm working with a therapist to like try to not be so like scared all the time, because like I get like, first I was like,
give an example of like what, let's say now you're like stuck with, or does that feel maybe too personal? Feel free to be like, yeah, no, I don't have an example, you know.
No, yeah, it's not real. It's honestly like because I always thought it was transitional anxiety, but I think it's just in general. Like my therapist says, it's like more like generalized anxiety with like specific anxieties. But it's just like getting used to life. It's not even a specific example, but it's like, okay, like now, like I love my life right now. You know, thank God, I'm like super happy. But then like of course, like my brain gets in the way. What if this, that, whatever? And it's just like it's hard to like train myself to be like, no, like you are doing so well, like you've done so well in life, like you've, you know, kicked butt of everything you've like been scared of, like but like still I'm like, I still like I'm frozen, and I'm like, okay, but like what if, what, like, you know, I like stop myself, and it's like, but like the truth is I have to keep like, no, like what if it does work out, like what if it's so it's like listen, it's a work in progress. Like I wish I could say that, like I'm cured and like, you know, no anxieties, and it's like,
but it's part of life. Like everyone has anxiety, whether it's like a phobia, whether it's just anxiety, whether it's a transition. Like I feel like you're still newly married, like even though it's a year and a half. Like to me that's like so new, like chill.
Totally. I know, totally, by the way. Like it's so funny because like I think about it and I'm like, oh, like we're only married a year and a half. Like you forget that
it feels like
married. Like everything, like because everything is like, everything is so in a bubble. Like when, like, I don't know, especially like when that's also why I like took a little bit of like a break or like a step back from Instagram, because I felt like I was like in everyone's face and like everyone's asking questions, and like I just like, it was like getting overwhelming, because I was like, let's say everyone's like, you know, why don't you have 5 kids by now, or like this and that, and it was getting like so much, like I was forgetting that I'm only married for a year and a half, and like not even like December 22nd it's gonna be a year and a half, you know.
Wow.
And I have to like go easy on myself, and I was constantly like down on myself, like, you know, I mean, like at the same time I'm like, hey, like my friends are in houses with 5 kids, like, you know, we're 30, it's bound to happen, like, you know, I'm never gonna be like at the same stage as the people who are my age, because I started later, and that's okay. But like I had to like take a step back, and I'm like, you need to go easier on yourself. Like you're like, I was like letting everything get to me, because I was just like, wait, like what's happening? Like, why don't I have 5 kids? And I was like, no, like of course I don't have 5 kids. Like I got married like less than a year and a half ago, and like that's okay.
Exactly.
Like,
that's a good reason to not have 5 kids, actually. That's like very bad.
Yeah, it's like
Whatever,
I get in my own head.
Say it again.
No, I said I just like I can get in my own head, which is like, that's just in general anxiety, Instagram, whatever.
Exactly. everyone gets it. I feel like everyone, I don't know anyone that doesn't have anxiety. And if they do, like, if they don't have anxiety, then like, I don't know, to me, like you have to have anxiety to be human.
I'm
And
jealous.
you have to know, I'm not even jealous because I'm like, I don't know, what planet are you on? Like, I feel like you want some anxiety in your life, but you want to be able to like be aware of it. Like you want to have that distance between you and the anxiety.
Yeah.
Like you want to have some anxiety because that's like, it means you're reaching for something. It means that you're like you're feeling life, you know, like you're not on ketamine. I don't know, like you want some, you know, like but you want to have like that distance between you and the anxiety, which it sounds like that's what therapy has helped you create. That's what maturing has helped you create. Like you can see the anxiety for what it is, even if it sometimes like tries to become part of you. You're like, no, this is my anxiety. Like this is me getting in my head, and like that's. I feel like that's where you are is like what people like spend their lives in therapy and working on themselves trying to attain, to create that distance. People that are trapped in anxiety, it's because they cannot separate themselves from the anxiety. And I think that's like the best, you know, like that's like the first, like that's like the ultimate goal essentially. And then knowing how to manage that anxiety, I think is like, you know, moving on from there. So just to break down this for people, like the therapy and the coaching, like what would you say, like I find it cool, and I think I've told you this, is that you were able to be in therapy and coaching at the same time, and like it didn't like interfere. Like I've never experienced that, and like I don't know if I've ever spoken to anyone that did. Like I know people are very into having a coach when they're dating, especially seriously. I find it fascinating, like to have the coach talk to both parties, like the same coach. To me, that feels like, I don't know, like I can't imagine myself being comfortable with that, to be honest. I'm not saying I would never do it. But it sounds like it would just create more problems because it's like broken telephone. Like, what did she say? What did he say? But it's so cool that it works for you. But more cool is that like, I guess I want you to talk about what that was like, and also what it was like to have a therapist and a coach, because I feel like people would think that they're like, it's redundant, and like, what are you talking to your therapist about if you're talking to your coach about that, or like, what are you talking to your coach about if you have a therapist? So maybe we could talk a bit more about that.
So the therapist was kind of like toward the end, like once we were like getting engaged, and it was kind of like to give me that push, because the dating coach was throughout the dating the whole time, and she was like amazing. Well, first of all, it helps that she's my aunt's best friend, so like different things I would do and say, she'd be like, oh my god, my Trevor would totally do that. Like she would laugh because like she's like, you're such a Stefanski, because like there's certain things that I did and certain things that I said. But she's also like, again, it really helped that Yosef was so open and like accepting and like responsive, because he was like, he also like, we both kind of, I think at the end of the day we both wanted to make it work. So like because we both knew there was something there, and we're like, okay, like maybe like, I'll say I'm not really good at communicating, so like it was helpful to have her. Like I would like tell, also like it was different because like when you're talking to a date, like you can't say to a guy what you're gonna say to a dating coach. Like if I had like after the date, for example, right after our bad date, like our fifth date, I was like, and you know, I was like saying all of these things, and like she like trickles it down to him like, maybe communicate better, you know? So it was like amazing because like like she was able to like take everything I told her and like kind of like make sense of it and like say something that like wouldn't have been maybe offensive, or like basically like I can be blunt sometimes and like not know how, because like again, I never like process my emotions normally. I don't know how to like speak in the most like kind way all the time, because sometimes I'll just say things without realizing that like it may like be a little bit hurtful or like a little bit whatever. So she was able to kind of like filter that out, and like on his side he would like tell her things, and like I have no idea what he told her. Like, you know, the dating coach wasn't like saying everything that each of us were saying.
Exactly. She was smart, like, obviously, and she like
very
was
smart.
like,
she was like filtering out what each of us were saying. And like that's really the only way it worked. But I think like more she was amazing and really smart and like helped us communicate amazingly. But I think like more than that is the fact that we both wanted to make it work. Like it's so easy when you have a dating coach or something, like, you know, most people, even with therapy or with anything, like if they're asking someone's advice, right? Like there's I know people that will ask like a million people advice. I'm not one of those people. Like I have like, if I'm asking advice, it's going to be to like a few people. I have like 3 or 4 friends that I tell, and that's it. But there's like certain people that like just love getting advice from people until like they hear the answer they want. So like those kind of people wouldn't necessarily work well with dating coaches, because not only are they talking to a dating coach, they're talking to like 10,000 of their friends. So like, you know, everyone's giving them a different answer. They're not going to like listen until they hear exactly what they want to hear. So like with me, like I wasn't like asking anyone else. Like I had like obviously my best friends that I was talking to when I was like anxious or whatever. But like at the end of the day, the only person I was listening to, especially in the beginning, was this dating coach, because I knew that she knew like what was best for me, and she was trying to like, she wanted to help both of us, you know, like she like was really good at what she did. And like toward the end with the therapist, it was like he didn't like care about the relationship. Obviously, I told him a little bit about it, like, and he like listened to hear any red flags that he told me, because like any therapist, you know, if they're like a dating kind of therapist, of course they're listening out to see like any red flags that like the person is talking about. So like I'm sure he listened to the red flags and he didn't find any, obviously. So like he was more of like solution, like, okay, here, like, you know, he, like I said, he was like a niche therapist that specialized in older singles to like help them get married. You know, he was even telling me, he's like, maybe take a Xanax. Like he literally said, he's like, I know people that like could not get engaged because they were so anxious, so they took a Xanax and then they got engaged. He said, like, if that's where you're at, he's like, if that's where you're at, then like that's what you'll do. And thankfully that's not where I was at, because I'm a very like solution oriented person. So like once I heard, I was like, it's transitional anxiety, I think something like kind of like clicked in my brain.
You're able to like hold on to something like this makes you're not crazy, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I was able to
listening, like, yes, it's not crazy to have anxiety, especially like at the precipice of a big decision and a big decision. I love that. So that's so interesting. So like the coach really just focused like only on the relationship, like being an amazing communicator between the two of you. But it sounds like she also did a good job like helping you then learn how to communicate with each other. So like it wasn't just like a band-aid, because it sounds it can sound like just like a band-aid, right? Like, okay, like I'm gonna be the one doing all the beautiful communication, and then like when you're left to your own devices, like everything, you know, explodes. But it wasn't like that. She was like, okay, I'll do this one for you, but next time you have to say this, and I'll do that for you, but next time you have to tell her this. So
she didn't even like, sometimes she would tell like either one of us like what like we said, but like then sometimes she'll like, she would always like give me advice. She'll be like, okay, Rikki, like maybe do this, like maybe do that, like maybe like I know he would love it if you did this, and she would tell him, you know, I know she would love it if you do this. So like she was also like kind of like hinting like different things for us to do without like us realizing, which was also amazing. But she also, again, like she's just like she's an amazing person. She's amazing at what she does. She's also a life coach. So like I literally like we're both so thankful like for her. Like literally I always talk to her like she's really, really amazing. And like I know we would not have gotten married without her. Like forget the therapy. Of course, like I needed the therapy like for sure. But like without her, like we never would have gotten married, because like I never would have been able to like truly understand like how to communicate, or like what it even like takes to be in a relationship, like how to understand it. And like she did it in like the least annoying way. Like wasn't like telling me what to do.
Yeah, she was really tactful. Like really,
she was she
was very like not controlling and like not blaming, and didn't like get into your anxiety. And like I feel like you're such a like perfect example of someone like so super high functioning that like used a coach and a therapist at the same time in the most like beneficial way. Like I love that your therapist like stayed out of the woods with like the ins and outs of like he said this, he said this, he said that. No. Like this is your anxiety. I'm gonna help you cure your anxiety, and whoever you marry, like that's none of my business type of thing. And she was like, no, I'm committed to you guys making this work or giving it the best like shot that you can, and I'm gonna help both of you do that like together. And I think that's like amazing. Like for everyone listening, like that is, you know, like ultimately I think like a beautiful combo. Now that doesn't mean that your coach, like someone else's coach and therapist might have different roles, but like there has to be, I think, some division of labor of like what's this person helping me with and what's that person helping me with, you know?
No,
and it's not overkill. It's not overkill to have both. Like I think that's like the point that I want to drive home, because people are confused. And like even myself, like I don't like till you're explaining this to me, like I didn't know what a dating coach really does, you know? Like what do they actually do? Because like I kind of felt like they might be for someone that doesn't want to be in therapy, and it just doesn't fit for them, or they're like, I'd rather just speak to a dating coach. It seems like less intimidating. But no, not necessarily. Like I think a good dating coach stays more in their lane, in the sense of like, well, I'll help you make this relationship work by talking to both parties, or whatever other relationship it is. But like you got to deal with your baggage and your other stuff, like with someone that's skilled at that.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
Yeah, really, like honestly, like we were talking about before, like I feel like even like now, like I feel less relatable, because like I'm married for a year and a half. Everyone's like, okay, like no one cares about your dating story, and like no one cares about your anxieties, no one cares about your hand. Like you already did a live about that. We spoke about that, whatever.
I think we never had so many people show up to a live, so I think many people care. Rikki, you're still very relevant. Okay.
Thank you, but it's just like, again, like I forget, like people. I don't think I ever realized, and I feel like people in general don't realize like how cathartic it is to like speak, and which is what's amazing about therapy in general, you know, like telling someone like your problems, and like that's what makes it better. But like even like sharing things on Instagram is like, you know, obviously you'll have some trolls and whatever, but for the most part everyone's usually like super supportive and like, oh my gosh, I feel the same way. Like, oh yeah, like I also did this. Thank you so much for telling me. And it's like those moments
Totally.
where, okay, like, no, I'm happy I said this. Like, I'm
Totally.
happy I spoke
Even
about
this live tonight, like with me and you, like I'm not engaged or right. So like I'm in that system that you were in like 2 years ago. And like just hearing that you hate escape rooms like made my night, you know, like and that you hate
escape
board
rooms.
games.
Oh, there's honestly like that was my worst. I think my worst date was ever like escape room, and I went a couple of times. Like one guy literally dished me the whole time. Like there was a bunch of families in the escape room with us, and he just like went off with them and like was doing it with them, and I was like, okay, so I just like.
Like it's an escape room, like you can't
on?
even escape, like you can't even like get out if you wanted to.
It really like
honestly, that's like trauma. That's crazy.
It's and also like anyone tells you like, oh, it depends on who you're with, like then it'll be fun. Like that is not true. That's not true. Like if you don't like, you could not like something, and like
exactly.
yeah, 100%. Like it's one thing if like you're going for a walk with like a guy that you have interest in, then like yeah, a walk is super enjoyable, and if not, like it's gonna feel like a long walk. But like if you're doing something you don't enjoy, it's not going to be enjoyable whether or not you're with a
exactly.
person.
And
like, yeah, you may have fun with it, but like it's still like not.
The no go. Yeah, I'm with you, girl. I'm with you. So yeah, talking is cathartic. This has been amazing. Any 2 minutes, do you have anything you wanted to share that you didn't get to share? Or do you feel like any parting thoughts?
I don't think so. I mean, like the only thing I can say if anyone has any like questions, you can DM me or anything like that. I was not reading the comments at all, so me neither. I have no idea.
I was way too intrigued. Honestly, like I feel like we could totally do another live and like answer people send in a lot of questions, so this is like open to everybody. Yeah. My following, your following, if they have questions, send them in. Yeah. And if I feel like there's enough to like do another live, this has been so fun for me, and like I would totally do this again. Yeah, same, totally. And it's like cathartic, and I think this is helping tons of people because like it's helping me, and I feel like it's just such a fresh perspective, and you have such an easy way of like sharing it. So I think it's refreshing for people to hear, and yeah, it's like a win-win for everyone. Thanks a million, Rikki. Thank you so much. You're precious. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for tuning in. And yes, please send us questions. And if we feel like there's enough, like that wouldn't be too redundant, we'll definitely do a part 2. Okay. Thank you so much for having me. Have a great night, Rikki. Take care. Thanks everyone. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining.